Hi and welcome to Thete Gaming. In this video I'd like to discuss my thoughts regarding the upcoming release of the Aeldari Codex for 9th edition and consider both the hopes and fears that I have, maybe others have, ahead of releases that are important to them, because I got a bit excited. Obviously knew Aeldari were coming. It's a little bit weird that we had this box set for Aeldari and Chaos Space Marines, which I'm also looking forward to. And then we hear, so Aeldari Codex coming out, like really big, right? So then is it Chaos Space Marines? No, it's Tyranids. Right, okay. But, I was still, when I saw yesterday that the Aeldari is going to be out for pre-order this coming weekend and then therefore release the following weekend. And I have quite a few 40k armies now. I've been going a little bit mad. Same with Age of Sigmar, really. Too many, actually. Especially for Age of Sigmar, because it's actually really difficult locally with me to find games. In fact, it's almost impossible. The game itself, in its latest edition, has actually actively turned off people near me. You can only get a game with one person now. And it sort of turned me off to a certain extent as well. I still sort of like playing it, but at the moment I'm thinking, yeah, there's too much wrong with it. But 40k is in a different place. There are issues with 40k, but 9th edition has been a fairly good release on balance. A recent balancing actually brought most armies close to the 50% win rate in tournaments. That's good. Obviously, you can't draw too many clear links between tournament performance and casual play performance. But nonetheless, that was pretty good. Drukhari was still out there. But then we've been hit with the latest Homunculus Coven kicking the knackers. So that may have sorted that out as well, because that was largely what that was about. More unkillable, cheaper Talos, basically. Now, obviously, I gather it's gone a little bit wrong more recently because the new Tau Codex came out. And they seem to be ripping up tournaments due to, I'm told, a prevalence of smart missiles. So again, GW will have to issue a change there shortly after the release of the Codex again. Because for all my praise of their recent balancing moves, it still really irks me that they don't get some of these things right from the start. There are some things that should emerge from playtesting. It's all right saying, oh yeah, but there'll be things they don't notice when it goes out to a much larger group of players. But you're supposed to have it play tested by good players, aren't you, who understand the game? They need to point things out to you. And some of them are really obvious. And I know from being involved in such things in my former life in World of Warcraft, the developers do ask cunning testers to break the game. What can you do to break this? So that they can then put things in place to stop it. There's no reason this should not also happen with Warhammer. But they don't seem to do that. They seem comfortable releasing a balanced data slate, as they call it, when the very obvious flaw in their new rules is exploited in a very obvious way by the very players who should be invited to review their work before it goes to print. But the next codex for release is Aeldari. Now, although I have lots of armies, I do really like all flavours of the Space Elves. Drukhari being too strong is a problem for me, because it limits the times I can feel comfortable bringing them. I can't just, go to the club, get a game with someone, bring Drukhari, bang, gone in one turn. I'm not someone who enjoys winning a game in the first turn. And even if I want there to be a tactical battle. And for a tactical battle, that means it has to be in the balance. The points has to be fairly close for at least the first 3 battle rounds. If someone then forges ahead, okay. But for at least the first 3, you need it to be close. Otherwise, it's not a game. Anything less than that is just a waste of time. And even if I was someone, because there's plenty of people like this who'll go, yeah, I want to crush them, in the first turn. It's like, yeah, people will just start, when you ask for a game, going, yeah, no. So that doesn't help anyone. And at the same time, you also don't want your favourite armies to be excessively weak either. You want them to have options. To be able to make a list that is a balanced prospect against anything. So what will Aeldari be, And there will be some people who've seen illicit previews from the Codex, of course. I don't bother with those. I stay away from those. I've got patience apart from anything else. But occasionally you'll see the odd thing that turns out not to be true. But we have seen plenty from Games Workshop themselves. A lot of very tasty rules. Proper invulnerable save for Genzar, as well as other Phoenix Lords, which was necessary. I did feel very bad having Genzar caught out of combat sometimes, because she was so great. She'd kill the things along with her Banshees, and then stuck in no man's land, gets shot at. Oh, I ain't got an invulnerable save. Just dead. And so gunned down far more easily than should have been the case. But then we've also got 5-up invulnerable saves for all aspect warriors. Okay. But then you think, Then you've got the new battle focus, which I was distressed to hear Dark Reapers won't be getting, but that might have been a bit too much. Poking out at half an inch to shoot at something, and then even if you just rolled a 1 on it, an inch back behind the blocking terrain, it might have been a bit much if I'm honest. But basically we've been inundated with a lot of new shiny toys for Craftworlds, Harlequins, Aeldari, and even Drukhari, because they're going to be allowed Harlequins in their list after this Codex. Right, just take along, you know, a Star Weaver full of melter, short range melter. And I'm not sure an already strong and tricky to balance army really needs the option of taking Harlequins along as well for no penalty. But we'll see how that one pans out. But you think about all these new abilities, and I've not seen everything, of course, because I've not seen it all together in the Codex, not for a couple of weeks. And you think, will they be too strong? Or, with all these new shiny things, will the points be in there? And therefore your army is really highly elite and therefore susceptible to weight of dice in terms of firepower in your face, and therefore potentially be too weak. And that worry that they may be too strong because Games Workshop want to sell their new book, and there are also new models to go with them. Will Aeldari be, you know, some kind or other, suddenly taking the tournaments by storm initially, driving up the sales before the inevitable balance? Because that's all, I don't know, people fall for this all the time, don't they? If they go, oh, this army's doing really well. Oh, yeah, I'll get that army. They get some units. And then they've painted them. They're about to bring them there. Bang. Balance. Oh, this is no good anymore. Stop falling for it. But anyway, then I think, is it a conscious part of the plan? Because they do say never ascribe to malice that which may be explained by incompetence. But it could be argued there's a certain business logic in making the latest army look very strong. Not everyone is as shy about taking the strong list. Some may want to take an army that can crush their opponent in the first turn, even for casual club games, because it saves them learning how to play strategically. You know, strong armies appeal. Obviously, they will appeal to tournament players, because you don't want to take a weak army to a tournament. But they, you know, they're too few to seriously impact sales, I would argue, even given that they may spend more on the hobby per person. Far fewer of them. I mean, we've been aware of so-called power creep for many years. A new army book comes out. It is perceived to be really strong. Sometimes it is, sometimes maybe it's just a perception. I think the perception could sometimes rise because you bring the new army, the people playing against you don't know what that army is capable of. You use these cunning tricks, and it's like really devastating because they've no defense against it because they didn't know it was coming. So there's nothing they put in place. And they think it's really strong. But in actual fact, once you've got used to it, and you think, oh, this unit can do that, or I'll do this to counter it, all of a sudden it's not so strong. So sometimes it's a perception, but sometimes it's real. And then what happens is the next one comes out, and then that's really strong, or perceived to be really strong, whatever. And you think, so is this deliberate? Or did GW just not think in those terms? And the cock-ups like the recent Tau Smart missile ploy are just born of putting monkeys in charge of the testing process? I just find it odd that the team working on 40k, they're able to balance things reasonably well when they try. They've certainly done a lot better job than Age of Sigmar. In Age of Sigmar, you've still got, and they've done nothing about this, there's a 4 or 5 armies that are just right out there at the top. They can compete with each other. None of the others have got to look in unless they are played by an exceptional player. And you do have exceptional players that can take a weaker list and do well, even win tournaments. But by and large, all other things have been equal. There's like 4 or 5 armies that are just out there, and nothing else will touch them with equal skill. You know, but in 40k they've balanced things. They've done well. You know, but how is it that they can do that and they can't get very obviously broken things picked up on before printing? But I'm not in a completely terrible place when it comes to things like that, because I think to myself, well, okay, if it ends up being really strong, I'll find someone to play with it. But I don't just have one army that will either be weak or strong. You know, I have multiple armies that are nice and balanced. There's a range of them. But it is nice to be able to play them in a rotation without worrying that it might all be over one way or another in turn 2. Like sat there in turn 2 with my huge dead pile, or sat there in turn 2 with like nothing dead and my opponent having a huge dead pile. And what do people think if you do just have 1 or 2 armies then? Because you're much more sensitive to it then. Is new Codex time a worry? If it is, you know, do you worry about it maybe being too strong as much as too weak? Or do you not care about it being too strong? As long as it's strong enough, as long as it's not weak, is that all you're bothered about? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And until next time, I'll see you later.